I kind of want to start off by saying, what is the difference between a show caller and a stage manager? Because Matt, Matt Stern is our guest. He is a Broadway show caller, a Broadway stage manager, and I will bunch this up because I was thrown in a tower at the X Games, and all of a sudden I was calling a show. I did not know what I was doing. No one trained me. I am trial by fire. I have just learned how to call shows by being thrown in them in a tower at X Games, which turned into the Olympics, which turned into corporate. And my very first corporate show for pharmaceutical, I was asking to roll video, and I was like, video in three, two, one. And then somebody on the comm said, uh, you come from broadcast, you can count backwards beautifully, but we're not going to move till you say the word GO. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. Like, so I have done this now for 16 years. I have called shows and I am a sponge. When I'm on the deck running a show, running the deck, I am just like, I love listening to show callers. I love to hear how they do their cues. I love to go sit by their book and like, how'd you do this one? What, your post-it person? Oh, are you scripty? Like, I love seeing how people get it done. Well, Matt does this for a living. Matt and I met through a corporate client many, many years ago. And when I get to New York, sometimes I get to have coffee with him, and it's been awesome. He runs the Broadway Stage Manager Symposium. It just ended this weekend, where he trains Broadway stage managers, but he also teaches them about corporate and how to call corporate shows, because there's another angle to that. So I want to let Matt take it from here. And y'all, this is an open discussion. He has stuff he's going to share with us, but we can raise our hand, we can interrupt, like whatever. Let's just take it away, Matt. And I hope at some point I can learn the difference between a show caller and a stage manager, and if it's offensive to call a stage manager a show caller and all that stuff. Go, Matt.
Okay, thank you so much for that nice intro, Nancy. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me to be here with all these fabulous, wonderful human beings. I love that they're from all over, and I look forward to having a conversation together for the next 40 minutes. So please, if you've got any questions or thoughts, I love engaging in conversation. I can talk for hours, but it's not my preferred method of communication. Um, that said, I'll give you a little background on me first, so you know where I'm coming from. I actually was born in Brooklyn, grew up in LA in the Valley, so little Valley dude right here, Chatsworth, and then I went to school at UCSD, so fellow Triton undergrad. Yeah, Allison, I love it. Um, went in thinking I'd be an actor, but wanting to do anything. I went through being an electrician and a lighting designer, and I came out a stage manager. I got my equity card working at the La Jolla Playhouse. I then took a gig at Ballet Iowa. That was my landlocked year. Went back to San Diego, did a show at the Globe. That then moved me to New York. That was Play On in 1997. I spent the next 20 years doing Broadway and national tours. Wicked, Little Mermaid, Death of a Salesman, Finding Neverland, a couple years of Radio City, Spider-Man, On the Town, yada, 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 a bunch of flops. Um, and then I got into this corporate stuff, and I started kind of juggling the two worlds for a little bit. And around 2017, it was like, yeah, I need to do more of this corporate stuff. So I kind of flipped the script and started pursuing corporate events full time. And I've been doing that full time since 2017. Along the way, I started teaching at SUNY Purchase. I now also teach at Montclair in their BA and BFA programs, teaching of all things stage management. And I started this thing in 2015, the Broadway Stage Management Symposium, which I describe as it's a professional development and networking conference for stage managers. So we get to attend a conference. So that's the idea. Most of the people tend to be younger in the industry, students trying to figure things out, but we get a wide swath of folks from international, early career, educators, professionals, where the Broadway stage managers are the panelists, but it appeals to everyone. So it's been a lot of fun. And then a couple years ago, along with some dear friends who you may know, Cheryl Polson and Robert Calfin, started Event Training Academy. Miles has been one of our great spokespeople involved there. So thank you, Miles. Where we help take theatrically trained stage managers, or anyone really, and teach them some of the differences between corporate and theater, and how what you know in theater is applicable, but you need to know a lot of other stuff if you're gonna flip the script as I did and get into it and be successful. And we've had a few people from our ETA community also joining us. Thanks, Calvin and Kat. It's great to see it. Um, So that's a little bit out where I'm coming from. I have a huge passion for education. I have a huge passion for stage managers. I consider myself so fortunate to be in this community of real leaders. And that's kind of where I kind of head philosophically, is trying to empower stage managers to be leaders in our company, in our industry, because that's the skill set we have. We find ways to get the job done. It's not just a lyric from Hamilton. Although for me, most things are a lyric from a musical. um, and so that's something that I'm really passionate about, and being able to be a leader in the room, no matter what the goal is, whether it's a big musical number or whether it's, sending a corporate speaker on stage to then talk for the next hour about something that is hopefully not boring. Um, I'll get to that first question first. I'll tackle the stage manager show caller, because a lot of it depends on perspective. The idea of the stage manager can be all encompassing and can be the show caller and the deck manager. In theater, we use the term stage manager, and we do it all. We rotate through. We call the show, we deck the show, we do a lot of other things that we don't necessarily do in corporate. And so that term stage manager encompasses all of those skills and all those activities and responsibilities. In corporate, we break it up to where there's the show caller who just calls the show and has those duties, and the deck manager who just runs the stage and everything that happens there. The term stage manager, depending on who's using the term, they could be referring to show caller, they could be referring to deck manager, or they could be referring to someone who just takes care of the whole thing and more of like a producer role. So when someone asks me to stage manage a show, or an event or a gig, it's like, okay, do you want me to call the show? Do you want me to deck the show? What is it you really need? And I'm happy to do any of that. Um, so that's kind of tackled that first question for us.
Thank you. And I just want to say, when people submit a request for contractor form for Tempo, the most important part to me is the roles and responsibility. And if you guys saw the posting that went out, it was like Friday or something, Kat, they needed a stage manager right away tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. It was, when I got on the horn, it was a deck manager. And I had all these stage management show callers lined up, and then ended up being a deck manager. So anyway, they didn't fill that out. They just asked me. Like, so if you fill out my form, I need to know the answer too. So thank you. Yeah. Everyone gets confused. Appreciate that. What's up?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
and it happens all the time. Those who've done some theater will tend to use the term stage manager more often. Those who've not done any theater might just use the term show caller. So it's really understanding where that question is coming from.
Yeah. Michaela.
I come from the from the theater world, so I get what you're saying. And then my question actually is, in a corporate event, what do you call the person who runs the slide deck? Because when people have said deck manager before, I like kind of assumed, like, I was like, oh, that's the graphics, or the content coordinator. And so what's the term for that?
My graphics operator will be running the PowerPoint.
Okay. That's what, okay.
Speaker support. They're called speaker support too, and graphics op. And the content manager is something different. Sometimes they overlap.
And so the deck manager is just who's on deck, and they're managing the stage, literally like on the stage, dealing with that. Is that, am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, I like to think of stage managers as people who don't really do anything. They just make sure everything gets done. So like,
Gotcha.
I don't push the button, I don't run the queue, I don't do it in the computer. What I do is I tell people what to do. I say go, I send people on stage, I send the crew on to set the chairs. Those lines are pretty strict in commercial theater, where we have unions for everybody. Like, don't stuff the playbill. That's their union job. Don't fix the toilet. That's their union job. Don't touch the chairs. That's a different union's job. But in corporate, all the time, it's like, all right, we have 7 chairs to move and we have 3 stagehands. All right, I'm the deck manager. I'm jumping in. Like, let's get this transition done as soon as possible. So being able to be a person who's able to jump in and help out in any fashion, whatever is necessary to make the deck happen and execute it as best as possible, is a great skill in corporate events, as opposed to in theater, where you get in trouble if you touch something. I've had stagehands yell at me places when you put your hands on the wrong thing.
Thank you.
Cool. I'm happy to get into some more of the differences between theater and events. I've love the fact that I kind of have a foot in both worlds, because they kind of do reinforce each other. So I do have a couple little slides, which are I consider these like the big five differences between theater and events. So let me pull that up. Da, 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 ba, 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 da. Oh, so yeah, now I've got High School Musical stuck in my head because I just dropped my son off at a friend's house and he was singing it really loudly. Uh, so that's where I am. All right, so now I'm going to share that. Great. All right. So difference number one for me is all about the vocabulary. It's very, very different. When we get into corporate, we're talking about DSMs. Is I always use that as a nice example. Theatrically stage managers will always say DSM, downstage middle, maybe. No, the downstage monitors. That's always a big one. Things like MOS and stingers and fireside chat. These colloquialisms that we use in corporate all the time are not common in the theater at all. So, I mean, even if a clicker and a pickle are things that we don't ever use in a Broadway musical. So that kind of the one big piece when someone's trying to move from theater into corporate, it's like you got to know the territory. You got to know the vocabulary, the words, because that's one of the big things that'll call you out right away as you don't know what the multi-view is. Oh, okay, you haven't done this before. Right.
What
So
about
then,
presets? Are there presets in theater?
well, no, our presets tend to be targets.
Okay.
So when we're talking about, because we're not usually talking about a lot of media servers sending different content to different screens. Some shows get into that a little bit more, but it's not in presets. That'll be in a queue stack. So if we have that type of show, like something like Here Lies Love or something, even Spider-Man had a lot of LED walls and media. It's really just media queue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, the presets are already built in and we get a queue
Okay.
stack.
Thank you.
Um,
That's kind of one of the quizzes I give when people I don't know want to call a show for tempo. I have my own little quiz base that I do, and that's one of the words I'm looking for. And from theater, you won't have it. Okay, continue. I'm learning.
cool. Then the crew configuration is much different. In theater, the biggest crew department we usually have are dressers and carpenters, and you don't get either of those in events. The video crew that you have in events and the graphics team, all of that doesn't exist in the theater. In theater, we have our carpenters, our props, sound, lighting, dressers. Sound and lighting you have in events, but the other difference is that sound and lighting, your crew people are also your designers. Now, granted, there are some exceptions where sometimes you'll have an LD set the show and then disappear, into another session, light that one, and then leave a board op. That's more the exception. Your A1 and your L1 usually are your operators and your designers, which is a huge difference from theater where a designer will come in, do all the art stuff, and then get the heck out of Dodge. And I actually love the collaboration I'll have with some A1s where you're trying to come up with the right plan, something that has the right feeling and the right lyrics that go with the meaning and the messaging and maybe the right demographic. And that type of collaboration is a lot of fun. In the theater, stage managers generally don't give us artistic input. Some collaborations it does exist, but in general, people don't want to hear artistic ideas from the stage manager. However, when I come into an event, that's one of my huge assets because I like to call it the production specialist. I'm the person who knows the razzle dazzle, the razzmatazz, the right way to pump up an audience, the right way to ride a crest of applause. And that is the great skill set that you bring when you come from theater. So even though there are some of those differences are like, don't do. This is one of the no, we want that. We want your theatricality because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying not to have death by PowerPoint and talking heads. We're trying to have something that's a little exciting and engaging. Oh yeah, so there is the no wardrobe department, extensive video. Yeah, props and carpenters usually it's chairs, fireside chats. Maybe you have a demo pad or something. There's not a lot of scenery usually, and when you do have something, then it's a whole big thing. It's like, oh my goodness, there's a turntable. Wow, we don't know what to do. you know. It's like, it's all right. We set a target. We actually had a turntable on a Google event I did about a month ago. And I was like, all right, turntable. Okay, so we'll turn it clockwise for this, and then we'll make it counterclockwise so that we reveal the thing. Like, no, this is designed. It only goes one direction, 180 degrees, and then back 180 degrees. I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. Okay, so I guess we'll just do that. It's like in theater, the idea of having a piece that only does one thing, it's like no director or designer is going to want that. Like, we want to have all the options. It's like, no, it's a turntable. It goes one direction. That's all it needs to do. Like, okay. Our camera records. That's a whole new division for us. And makeup is an interesting piece because in theater, hair and makeup is a vital piece, but you'll in events, sometimes you don't deal with it at all, and other times it's an afterthought. But especially for gentlemen that have a hairline like this one, some powder, super important. You got IMAG and a bald head and backlight, you're going to get some glare. So have knowing those special tricks, even if you don't have a wardrobe department and you got a lovely bald CEO telling his handler that, some powder from your compact on his head might really help. All right. And then I mentioned designers equal operators. So that's all the people. Everyone catching some of my lyric references. So the schedule is super different. In theater, we will rehearse one bit for hours, if not days. In Fiddler on the Roof that I did on the Alfred Molina revival that became the Harvey Firestein, we did and redid the opening number every day for a week. As opposed to in theater, you might not even rehearse a speaker at all. The schedule is so truncated and so compacted that all you're doing, you come in as soon as loading is over, you try to tech as much as you can. As soon as those speakers are available, they're coming in to rehearse, and then your doors open in 5 minutes. So the schedule is super compacted, and there is no rehearsal process. That all that stuff that might happen in an offline room or might happen in their corporate headquarters weeks in advance. If you're lucky, they actually do that because we've probably all had rehearsals where you come and like, this isn't a rehearsal. This is where they're figuring out what to do. That's a very expensive meeting that you're having with the crew sitting around. So there's short timelines. Sometimes you'll get onstage rehearsals will happen before your tech, which always confounds me. It's like, can I see the content and work on that first? And then we have the presenters come and rehearse. It's like, no, this is when, the chief financial officer is available. So this is when they're coming in. Okay. It doesn't always make logical sense on how you would like to build a show, but that's the challenge that you have. That's the way it's going to be. And that's where your flexibility comes in to be able to take, the step 5 and do it second, and then move step 3 and do that 7th, and then put it all together and still have the show run smooth and clean. All right, so being fast and efficient is super important in corporate, whereas in theater, usually, not always, being slow and methodical will be more advantageous because you'll tech a sequence in the theater and you'll tech it and you'll take the 5 minutes or 5 hours it takes. You won't come back to it for a week. So you have to know exactly what you were doing. In corporate, I'll tech it if possible for 2 minutes, and then I'm doing it in the session in an hour. This is one of the things I love about doing corporate is I don't have to make a schedule. I don't have to distribute a schedule. I don't have to deal with any of the craziness of this actor has an audition and that person can't come in. This person wants to do it, have a dentist appointment, and like the director wants to rehearse this, while the music director wants to rehearse that, and the choreographer needs the whole ensemble for all day to do the big finale. Not my bag. Thank you, producers, for dealing with the schedule so that we stage managers just have to focus on the tech and the crew. So, and that flows neatly into the paperwork because there's not a lot of paperwork that we have to deal with in corporate, but we're drowning in it in the theater between our run orders and our show flows and our rehearsal reports and our performance reports and our hair wig makeup schedules, all the different paperwork, prop lists and preset lists. And we're drowning in those. But in corporate, I don't have to make a lot of paperwork at all. In fact, there's only one document I really need to have any input on, and that's the show flow. I'll get that. Sometimes it's in great shape, sometimes it's not. So sometimes I will take it and revise it, make it cleaner, make it more intelligible. But aside from that document, there's nothing I really need to generate. I might be given things like graphics. I might create a preset list or get one from the switcher, the engineer. But other than that, I don't have to be involved. I can literally walk in on show site and be handed a show flow and go. As opposed to in the theater, I'm there all the way from the first day of rehearsal, documenting every single move that people make all over the stage. No prop lists, no scene breakdowns. So the goal is different, right? In theater, we're trying to make art, right? We're trying to change hearts and minds. We're trying to impact the world and elevate people's spirits. Now, some of that is happening in corporate, but almost always the goal at the end of the day is this company is supposed to make money, right? Whether they're launching a new drug or a new technology, a new app, or if it's a leadership meeting or a sales meeting, the job of the event is to help that company make more money. So our job is to precisely execute the show to their specifications so that they can then report back to their senior leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So I've sometimes often said to our crew when someone, I actually just the event I did last night, they didn't want any play-ons for almost, unless it was an honoree, nobody got a play-on. It's like those transitions were ass, excuse me. But that's the way they want it. So sometimes I'll say on headset, it's like, okay, you're right. Doing it this way is better, but we're not. We're going to do it the way they want it. And that's what we do. Um, and it is about the result. It's not about the process. Whatever is happening on headset and whatever craziness is going on, as long as the client sees the show they want and they're happy, it really doesn't matter how you get there. Now, of course, there are nicer, more comfortable ways to get there. There are places where people feel supported and valued, and that's what we want to do as leaders. But in the end, if it's crazy on a headset and everybody's cursing up a storm and the show comes off great, and at the end of the day, you're like, well, that was a shitstorm, but we did it. Client's happy. We're good. But if I have a shitstorm happening at the theater, I send the performance report. My email is going to blow up. My phone's are ringing off the hook first thing in the morning. What happened to the show last night? What's going on? How are we going to fix this? What's going on? The process matters so much more. It's so much more precious when you're in the theater working with all the artists. But as I like to say, I've yet to meet a single CEO who's more challenging than Patti LuPone. So yeah, it's all about the dollar bills. It's all about the money in the event world. And that's where the pressure comes in because in some ways it could be someone's job. Like every event, there's someone on the client side who might be like, if this doesn't go off well, I'm toast. That's always in the back of someone's mind. So we want to execute the clean show. All right. So this slide is kind of like the skills that we have as stage managers in the theater that kind of are part of our soft skill set. I like to call them subjective skills because I think they are subjective, part of our personality develop over time. These are the assets that we can take into corporate and make it shine by being a leader with the crew, by finding the path through, like what is the technical challenge here? How do we pivot when, I forget who it was that says, it's like something's always going to go wrong, right? Someone's going to forget to advance a slide. Someone's going to forget to call for video. A speaker's not going to get up. Someone's going to forget to, introduce the next person. Being in it and in a way, kind of like surfing the wave, that's what these skills help us do. But it's also one of the great differences between the theater and events is that in theater, same show every night. That's our goal. We want to do the same show every night. Corporate, we want to do one show that looks like it was exactly designed to go off the way it did, but who knows what's going to happen. Whatever happens, the audience doesn't know. So we're trying to pivot however we can to make it seem clean and as intended, which can often involve a fair amount of improv. I like to compare it to jazz. Corporate event is like a jazz jam session. Theater It's like a classical concerto. So, because this is the Event Training Academy. There's Robert and Cheryl. But that's those are the slides that let me stop my share so I can see all the rest of you. So those are a few things that when I think about theater and events, thank you, Nancy. The differences and the similarities I find fascinating and engaging. I really like the idea for us as envisioning ourselves as like that brain surgeon, but I'm the brain surgeon of theater, theatricality, production. So that's the great value that I can bring coming from a theatrical background. Now, oh, I see we have stuff in the chat. Ooh, fun.
Yeah,
Oh,
questions about the difference between a show flow and a run of show. That's a great question. Because I created a show flow for a new client. I've been working with a client forever, and then I went away for a couple years. And I was the only, there was no production company. It was like an AV company, the end client, and me. So I was always with the end client, I was producing, and I was also show calling. So I was getting their content, and I was really hands on. And then years go by, I'm not working on the show, and there's this whole new like event team, and there are a bunch of women working on the event team. And I don't want to come in there guns ablazing, going, this is how we're going to do it. And this is what I do. So I was like, hey, ladies, I don't want to step on any toes. I'm going to create your show flow for you. And when I do that, I'll find all the holes that will help me call your show. I was called just to be the show caller. So I made my show flow and I highlighted like, well, Matt's coming on stage. Is he solo or is there 3 people? And how long is he going to talk? Because I took their agenda and this woman said, I'm doing the show flow. I'll do the show flow. I'll have it ready for you. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. As we got closer to the event, I was like, hey, do you have that show flow? Hey, can I look at your show flow? Because I'm thinking, how is this woman? She's an event planner. No offense to event planners. How does she know how to write a show flow? And I kept asking for it. And then the day of the show, the day of rehearsal, she gave it to me. It was a run of show. It was just a straight line of Matt's coming on, and then Kate, and then Al's going to talk, and he's going to talk for like, it's crazy. So big difference. Miles, you said it. How did you describe it in that text?
A show flow is an actual map that you give the crew, and at any given moment, they know if they're on doing something or not. Whereas a run a show, to your point, which I experienced 2 weeks ago, the client will give you the run a show, and as far as they're concerned, you have everything you need to call the show. And you look at it and you go, no, that's really not a show flow, but I don't want to embarrass the client. Plus, I want to work for the production company again. So in that case, I just create a show flow. I don't bill for it because at the end of the day, the crew has to understand what you're saying when you say go. And for me, I don't mind taking an hour or two and converting that document. No one has ever said to me, oh my God, why did you create a new document? Look, I had everything for you. Most will appreciate what you've done for them or what they've done or what you've done with their document.
yeah, I'm going to echo what Jackie put there is that people do. Miles, I agree, you're absolutely correct. And people still use the term sometimes interchangeably.
Yeah.
I'll compare it to the lectern and podium idea. Yes, I know. Once you know the difference, it'll hurt your head forever. Uh, but yes,
So
people do use the term interchangeably, but a run of show tends to be more like an agenda where your show flow tends to be the more detailed piece.
So would the theater comparison for a show flow be a cue sheet?
My cue sheet, I would call it my run sheet, sometimes referred to as a shift plot. I know at Purchase, some of the people call it the who, what, where, when. Who's doing what when. I mean, that's at its basics. That's really what it's telling me. My run order in theater would be more like my run of show. It's scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4. But my show flow is going to tell me what props are in that scene, what fly pieces, what scenery, what actor, who's in it, what they're wearing. So that's where my shift plot or my run sheet in theater is like my show flow. It's much more detailed.
Does anyone else, I feel like when you guys were talking about show flow, I'm actually visualizing a text script. Does anyone else use the terminology text script where it is kind of your who, what, where, when, why?
Say more about a text script.
Well, that's what my show callers would use was a text script. So it's basically a map for lighting, graphics, what's on stage, all of that stuff. And my production teams will use that. I'll write it for them, but I'll get them to run through it with me. And then as long as the show caller's happy with it, that's kind of their Bible, but that also includes that stage management component of it as well.
Cool. I would love to see what that looks like, because when you use the term script, for me, I'm seeing a lot of paragraphs and sentences and words.
It's a really pretty Excel sheet.
Sounds awesome.
Okay.
Can you share
it?
Yeah.
Can you
It sounds like we're
us-
probably talking about the same type of document.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating to me how corporate events, there are so many different circles.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, like in like the theater, I think is like, there's like one big circle and there's a couple regional theaters around it. Small niche. But in our event world, like all of us here in one circle, and one of us will spin off to another circle. Like Trina, you've got a whole nother circle that overlaps this one, and then there's a whole nother circle. So it's like that Olympic rings. Because this event, this business, like in all putting together Event Trading Academy, doing some research, found out it's like over $100 billion industry. No. It's a 1.8 million events a year in the US in 2019. Like, I don't know about any of you, but I'm not doing 1.8 million events a year.
No.
There's
that's
a
why we're
lot out there.
That's why we're trying to grow Tempo, because I always say there's all these rings. When you meet a freelancer you've never met before, it's like, what? And they have this whole circle, and then you meet another one and they have this whole circle. And I feel like Tempo, I always tell my clients, we have all the circles now. Like we have, and I call them circles. There's so many circles of people, and now Trina's in our circle, right? And Trina's got this whole other circle. It's so cool, and it's so different, but so similar. Like in the end, it's going to be similar. And then when people ask you to call a show, and when I get asked to call a show, a really good question to ask is, it's not how many people in the room, because that doesn't matter. It's what technology are you using? How am I supported? Like, who's writing the show flow, and is it scripted? Because that's a whole nother beast. I remember when my first scripted show, I reached out to Miles. I was like, I never called a scripted show, but I've seen people do it. What am I supposed to do? And he sent me screenshots of what it looked like. A scripted show is way different than just an Excel spreadsheet show flow. Because you got to move the graphics when he says the word altitude. You got to have the big, like a preset, a screen change of the background or whatever. So
it's
be
kind
really
of funny because I still turn my show flow into some calling notes for me that look like my theatrical call script, but the only words on the page is like Calvin speaks, Kate speaks, and before Calvin speaks, it'll be, and there's the play on, and there's the title slide, and there's this, and the music fade out, and then IMAG, and then Calvin speaks at end. Then I'll write, introduce next speaker. Okay, play on, title slide, music out, IMAG, and I'll literally write it out as like my little crib sheet.
I just worked with a stage manager, I forget his name, 2 weeks ago, because then I did a show right after, and he did the same thing. He had a Xerox sheets, like templates, where he had his show open and his show close, and like video rolls a key, and so he scripted it for those moments. Because the rest I can just call some cues, but sounded just like that. It was fascinating. He goes, I come from theater.
Yeah, I literally write it on the back of like old show flows. I'll like bring a stack of like old pages and I'll just scribble it all over the back. I'm just like da. Okay, just so that my eyes are used to calling a show reading down the script, not reading across. Now, a smaller show, I'm fine. I've done it before where I'll just call off the show flow, but I prefer to see the cues stacked. Like this goes together, this goes together, this goes together.
And sometimes I call a show off of 6-ups printed from graphics, and I put Post-it notes on them. Every show is different. I'll put Post-it notes on my graphics of what's happening, who's coming up. At this graphic, I know I need to change to something. It wasn't prompted, so I couldn't use the scripting words, but I knew when he hit this graphic that I had to do a background change or whatever. Another hack.
I actually like getting the file now. Like, don't give me a printout, just give me the file. I'll get it faster, so I'll get more accurate updates. I'll bring it up on my screen, and I'll actually put sometimes into the notes or even on the slide, I'll write a note to myself if something specific has to happen.
I learned something new.
I enjoy that. I mean, I'm getting much faster at PowerPoint, so I which it makes me really enjoy digging into it that way.
I work with a lot of nonprofit clients, and it's a scripted situation where they want us to advance their slides, and they send us either talking points or they send us actual remarks, and then we have to build those cues into. And so I've just made up my own version where it's like a Word document. I've got my show flow or my maybe they've given me a run of show, but I also have to build a Word document that matches a PowerPoint. And I have just taken to color coding. I've color code, what does the graphics op need to do? And then what does the, lighting person need to do, or the music or whatever. And so if anyone
It
has
totally
a more
works.
efficient way of doing that, I'm all ears.
Yeah. Well, that's
You
the
know-
fun thing about doing corporate is it is kind of guerrilla that way. It's not unified. There's not a standard. Like theater has become more standardized because of all these theatrical programs out there. And so we're all going out there and kind of guiding towards a certain standard. But in corporate, it's still kind of guerrilla. If it works, it works. But I think Miles had a suggestion.
Well, every show is different and every show is the same. And as a stage manager, you'll learn pretty quickly as you head to production control with whatever paperwork somebody gave you, what you're going to have to pull out of your hat to create and what is laid out for you fairly well. And everything is a variation based on that. And how you get there, quite frankly, nobody cares about. I sat next to Matt watching him call a rather elaborate award show a month ago. And I peeked over his shoulder and saw what he was reading. And if something happened to him and somebody gave me his book to call the show from, it all looked like Chinese to me. I would not know where to begin. My book would look absolutely nothing like his. But the key is there's 22 people here. If we gave everybody the same show with the same information and the same book, and you were told to write a cue, whether it's off a script or whether it's off a show flow, you would have no two books would look alike. Yet the show should look exactly the same, no matter which one of us calls it.
Well, this is what makes me want to jump off there. That's why we get paid well. Because we're like this. Like if you're in brain surgery, there's only one doctor who can do the brain surgery. They don't have another one standing by. It's like, oh, well, that one, he got sick, bring in the next one, right? We're specialists. In the theater, there's this whole idea of if you get hit by a bus, the show must go on. So we're trying to make ourselves replaceable. That's lovely for the show, but it's not great for job security. But in events like that time, that schedule, that pressure, it's super compacted. Whatever you need to do to get it done, you're the specialist. That's why we get paid a good day rate. That's why you get paid a good hourly. Don't compare the theater hourly, even on Broadway, to what you're getting on an event. It's two different worlds.
So what do you suggest for people that want to sharpen their stage management skills? What are some tips that you guys have that you could share to the people out there that are going to listen to this later? How do you get started in calling shows?
How do you get started in calling shows? In theater, there are a fair amount of resources out there. Like I said, I do teach at a couple schools and I do classes on show calling. There's lots of resources on YouTube and stuff. There's also some decent resources out there for broadcast. There's a great one all about the Tonys, where the camera director calling out, take 1, take 2, give me stars, take 3, take 6, take 2, take 2, push out, pull it. It's awesome. But there's not a lot of formal education out there. That's one of the reasons that Robert and I started Event Training Academy, to be like, if you want to know how to do this, there's a method, but it's all hidden. Someone was saying earlier, it's like if you didn't know the corporate events industry existed, you didn't know it existed. It's all, I say it's behind a curtain, but it's just in the back of house behind some blacks, some pipe and drape. So I would recommend, if you're interested, the Event Training Academy, it's an 11 module course. There are 2 of them that specifically focus just on show calling. There's one breaking down the show flow and reading it and understanding it and how to create it and different ideas and methodologies. Then there's another one just on show calling that gives examples and samples. And Cheryl does a whole breakdown of how she sees the show flow and how she's going to call it and what words she's going to put into her mouth and when. So that's a great question. Oh, hey, Jay. The regular price is $9.97, but this is Tempo, so you're going to do a discount.
Thank
So,
you. And
I
that's
could send you a link.
event-based. That's a non-theater
Right.
portion, right? Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I can actually I can pull up the site here.
Look at Kat. Kat's endorsing you.
Uh,
Calvin, did you do the event one too? Okay, awesome.
yeah,
And then
Kat and
my two
Calvin.
cents. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Let me get to the actual course stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was
That's
a great class. It was highly beneficial for me and really gave me a rundown coming from theater of how to
Awesome.
all the language that I needed to know and really made me comfortable in stepping into the corporate world.
That's awesome. Very
Couldn't
cool.
agree with Calvin more. It's like such an amazing foundation, especially how we were talking earlier. The little things like lingo that, we have those skills from theater stage management that are very easily transferable, but it's the little details that when you show up and you actually kind of know what you're talking about, it's a huge step in the right direction. Couldn't recommend it more highly. Okay, back to packing. Thanks.
so this is
I
how we
saw your
break it
bed
down,
frame.
where we've got, the people, the overview, the skill set, the whole chapter of module on terminology, technology, then the show flow, show calling, day in the life, the deck manager, the business part. This to most theater folk blows their minds. They're like, invoicing? What's your day rate? What? You get overtime? Holy, there's double time? It's like crazy. And then another chapter on module on bonus events, on virtual events. But let me get that discounted link because it's a great community. We're excited to have all the members, and some people are just really starting to kill it, which is just, I mean, metaphorically, not literally. There's just people are doing great work, and there's so much happening. It's a huge industry.
It is huge. And one of my biggest tips of advice, because I'm scrappy, like I said, I came without any of this. I'm a television and film major, and I literally was thrown into a tower to call cues. When I got into corporate, I started deck managing, getting with a really good deck manager and just listening to those cues being called, and like Catalina, like you were saying, like she heard me call a show and it's so fun. And I was like, I want to be just like you when I heard them too. And then I just would sit next to them like, will you share anything with me? And you know what? I feel like this tempo circle shares everything. No one's afraid of losing their job or being outdone or whatever. Like, share the love. I will always share my rundown, my show flows with you. I will always share what I know. I got nothing to hide. And Miles was my support when I had questions about that as well. Like, just find your mentors, find people that will teach you what you're supposed to be doing, and be honest with your crew to a certain extent. First thing I say to my crew is like, hey, the last word you're gonna hear from me is the word go, but I want to hear from you on how you want me to cue something better. Like, I always ask my crew, like, it's my switcher, my video, do you want it VT? Is it video? Is it audio? Is it instant replay? Is it a shortcut? Is it IR? Is it, like, I just ask them, how do they want me to call it? Like, just be open with your crew too, and learn how they like to receive you as a show
Yeah,
caller too.
I'll,
That
I'll
goes a long
sometimes
way.
say to one of the gang, I will call a cue rutabaga if you like it to be rutabaga. Doesn't matter to me what the word is, as long as you like to hear it. I'll just say go at the end.
Yeah, it's
I
so
think
true. Good.
I think that could be an entire tempo hour, just what you two are talking about right now, because it's
Rutabagas?
so much about, yeah, really about what happens. But Matt, I got a question to ask you. I've always wanted to ask you this, and I'm going to. I did a corporate gig with Julie Tamer,
Wow.
and it was a TED show. It was a TED talk. I did TED Talks for 2 years.
Okay.
And I was asked by the producer to come down to the stage and meet with her and her production designer to talk about her talk. And after spending 15 minutes with Julie Tamer, I could not wait to get back to production control and be with my peeps. So my question to you is, and I know I'm asking this in front of 22 people that come from theater, what was she like in a theater? Because I cannot imagine being around her all day. And I'm sorry if I've offended anybody, but I just have to know what she was like.
I have a very disappointing answer for you.
Oh,
Although I've worked on both Spider-Man and The Lion King,
yeah.
never in production. So I was never in the same room with her.
Oh, Okay.
So
so
I'm
that's how
sorry to
you remain
disappoint.
sane. Okay.
Well, there are other directors who I have worked with, like for example, Diane Paulus. She's brilliant, but she also thrives on chaos. Like she's throwing things out. What about this? Let's try this. Let's try that. It's like we're still working on the last idea you had, and now you want to do the next thing. It's very challenging to keep up with that. But the reward at the end is, yeah, I know Jackie is way anticlimactic. I don't know. But the big great part about it is like if you make it through the chaos, you get to some really great stuff.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
with that, it's after 2. I've kept you guys 2 minutes long, but this was really cool. And Miles, I hear what you're saying. It might be another, like I called the stage management 201. I think it could be stage management 202, where we talk about the nuances of a really good stage manager, the etiquette, right? The etiquette of even thanking your crew at the end of the night, end of the day, walking around and shaking hands. And that is huge. And it's, you get so much respect. So, we need to circle back.
I got one tip on that.
Do it.
Learn their names and use their names.
Yes. Don't call prompter.
Yeah.
Use
Call
the
now.
names.
Right.
Yeah. Those are huge tips. So
Yeah.
maybe we can have that etiquette tips for stage managers in the stage management channel on the thing and on Slack, because it's called Expert Stage Manager channel. I would love to start throwing up there some etiquette for stage managers, because the whole world doesn't need to hear this, but the people that are signed on to, if you're not on Slack, A, get there. Let me know if you need in there. And then B, get on the Expert Stage Manager channel, and we can share this information, Matt, too. I'll put your Event Training Academy. I'll put it out on general, because I think the world needs to see it, and then also put
That'd
it
be
in
great.
the
And
stage
that
manager
discounted
channel.
link, that's $300 off. That discounted link.
Dude, that's awesome. Thank you.
Community.
Right. It is. It's all love. That's what I love about our community. And thank you for hanging in there for the extra few minutes, y'all. Keep an eye. We just posted some stuff on LinkedIn, and if we're gonna grow Tempo and get more clients for all of us, will you help me out and share and repost the stuff that I just put up there? It's about stage management as well. And just if you want to follow Tempo, it's just I got enough work, but I want to get y'all work, right? Like it truly is for you that I do this. And I want to keep everybody busy, and I need to get more clients if we're gonna if Tempo keeps growing like this. So please help us out. Jump on LinkedIn and repost stuff that we've done. That would be really, really cool, and it would only benefit you.